Welcome to this webinar. Do you know how much carbon is stored globally in furniture? 1%. That's the estimation that has been undertaken. Yet at the same point in time, in the US, only 20% of all furniture in offices is made out of wood. In households, it's 60%. At the same point in time, the US alone imports $6 billion worth of furniture every year. So in times of a climate crisis, we've got a huge potential by doing well business-wise with doing good for the environment. I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar about carbon storage in wooden furniture, and I welcome you specifically because it is an important contribution that you are providing to the environment and to the planet with your business. I'm Thorsten Arndt. I'm head of advocacy at PEFC International, and I appreciate your attendance. Let me outline 3 things how PEFC International helps you producing and selling wooden furniture. First thing, we ensure that the forests are sustainably managed. This means that you have a sustainable supply of raw material while at the same point in time ensuring that wood has the carbon benefits that we are looking for. Second, many of you are PEFC chain of custody certified. And there are ample companies out there who require furniture to be from sustainably managed forests, deforestation free, carbon neutral. So PEFC provides you business opportunities. Also, and that is the third item, because of the PEFC label, because it allows your customers to label their furnitures so that consumers know that they are doing a good thing by buying your furniture with a PEFC label. But let's have a closer look at what PEFC actually does in the forest. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Hubert, who has 15 years of experience in sustainable forest management. He actually has its own forest. Perhaps we'll talk about that as well. Hubert, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Thorsten, for this very lovely introduction. It's my really pleasure to show you some of the highlights, what we do at PEFC International to support our forests to store more carbon. It's through our PEFC sustainability benchmark standards, which are designed through a multi-stakeholder process, and they are aimed to promote and support sustainable forest management, which is essential to unlock and improve the potential of our forest to store more carbon and support the climate change mitigation efforts. Of course, this is not as simple as it shows on one slide. Or SFM standard, as we call it, the PEFC ST 1003, is structured around 6 criteria. These 6 criteria have long traditions in the forestry sector. They were triggered through a series of decades of development started from 1992 in Rio at the Earth Summit. This is the route where these criteria are tracked back. And these 6 criteria representing those sustainability areas which we consider and what we require from our forests to deliver. This is the first one, is the foremost importance also for us today, is the maintenance and appropriate enhancement of forest resources and their contribution to the global carbon cycle. Then the second is about the ecosystem health and vitality. We need to talk about productive functions as well, wood and non-wood alike. This is covered in the third criterion. Or fourth criterion is about the biological diversity in all forest ecosystems. Criterion 5 stands for protective functions. And last but not least is about the maintenance and appropriate enhancement of socioeconomic functions and conditions. This is maybe the last, but for some, this is the most important one, because it's about livelihoods, it's about communities. Clearly, I don't want to go all of them today, but I would like to highlight two particular criterion and how they contribute to these carbon sequestration support. It all starts with the forest management plans. And in our management plans, the standard requires that the quantity and quality of forest resources and the capacity of the forest to store and sequester carbon shall be safeguarded. Not in the short run, not only in the medium, but also in the long term. And this is being done by balancing harvesting and growing rates, using appropriate silviculture measures. And we are also putting a strong protective label on the significantly high carbon stocks. So that means that they cannot be subject of conversions, for example. Then one very concrete item, again, in the criterion 5, which I mentioned, it's about the protective functions, because we consider many of the ecosystem services also in terms of protective functions. And since, again, every forest is being different, I'm a forester, so for me, there's no two same forests in the world, that our standard requires that protective functions of the forests for society and their potential role in erosion control, flood prevention, water purification, climate regulation, and carbon sequestration, which we high regard, and other regulating functions should be maintained or enhanced. The maintained and enhanced is very important because we do work with forests which are already reached their maximum capacities to deliver on this. But of course, there are many other areas where they should improve. And all of this is decided at the ground because PEFC's main strength is from its bottom-up approach, meaning that due to the very high diverse nature of all the forest stands, all the different countries, their regions, their traditions, culture, we support the development of these national forest certification systems at national or regional level. And all of this, I only mentioned to you previously 3 of these requirements, but we have 140, which provides through these 6 criterions an overarching framework of 140 requirements for sustainability. All of this is being considered at national level working groups and public consultation and so on, which results in 46 PEFC endorsed national and regional systems, covering roughly 50 countries around the world. And the main strength is not that we say that they deliver, it's the third-party verification, which is the subject of all of the certificate holders that they go through during the certification process. Or independent certification bodies issue PEFC certificates. They are independent from their clients and also from us, as I mentioned. Furthermore, we only work with PEFC notified CVs so that they have the necessary accreditation in place with PEFC and ISO requirements. And this is how we ensure that the PEFC certificates are issued by impartial CVs. They also are not following the PEFC, but the ISO procedures as well. And we ask them and we require that these auditors to take part in regular PEFC trainings as well. So Every forest is different, but all of the PEFC forests deliver on the same set of requirements, which is essential to unlock and improve the potential of our forests to store more carbon and support the climate change mitigation efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hubert. I'd now like to introduce the second speaker, who will actually talk about what most of you, I think, are really interested in. When the wood comes from the forest and goes into the furniture, how much carbon is actually stored in it? And how can you calculate that? Allow me to introduce Francesco Negro, who is an assistant professor in Turin, lovely Italy. Francesco, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Thank you, Thorsten. And welcome you all. Thanks for attending. So over the next 30 minutes, I will firstly present the booklet on carbon storage in wood furniture in the first part. And then in the second part, I will show you how the online calculator works. But first, let me thank PEFC International for activating this project. It has been it is an interesting collaboration. Thanks also for the real support. And in particular, I have to thank Huang Maji. She is actually co-author of the booklet I am going to show you. Thanks for the great support in so many aspects. And also thanks to Luca Saccone for his support in developing the online calculator. Finally, also thanks to the various associated companies and enterprises that provided us useful feedback for fine-tuning and improving the booklet. So I can share my screen now. Share screen. And now I am going to scroll through the booklet. This is the cover page, and I will comment here and there some aspects of the booklet. Then I leave to you downloading the booklet and reading it. The version I am showing right now is an almost final version. We are performing the final proofreading. So next week, the booklet will be fully available and you will receive news from PEFC. Here on the left is the purpose of this booklet. This booklet provides an overview on carbon storage in wood and wood-based furniture. This is a wide topic. Carbon storage is a part of the broader sustainability concept. So, of course, it's not possible to address all the huge topic of sustainability in a short booklet. So here we wanted to focus on carbon storage in wood and wood-based furniture. The booklet presents basic concepts and describes the method for calculating the amount of carbon dioxide fixed in wood-based products. The idea is also that the booklet provides useful information for an informed use of the online calculator that is associated with the booklet. Here on the right, you have the table of content, and the first two pages here, the first two pages introduce the topic of carbon storage, carbon dioxide sequestration in wood, the role of wood furniture. Often sequestering, fixing, storing, these terms are used interchangeably. In more detail, trees sequester carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis process. Here on the left, you can see the equation of the photosynthesis. I already said during last year's webinar that it's always fascinating the equation of photosynthesis, because it is almost the equation of life. It's so important to life on Earth, photosynthesis. And so this is an active process. Trees sequester photosynthesis, sequester carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Then carbon dioxide does not enter in wood as carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is fixed in wood as carbon, as biogenic carbon. And this biogenic carbon remains stored in wood for the entire service life of wood-based products. It also remains stored when wood is recycled, reused, and when at the end wood decomposes or is burned, then carbon dioxide gets back to the atmosphere, restarting the cycle. We know how much important carbon dioxide is to climate crisis, global warming, and the point is that the wood furniture industry plays a significant role in tackling the climate crisis, because wood stores high amounts of carbon, and our society uses huge amounts, impressive amounts of wood-based furniture. And so the role in mitigating climate crisis of the wood furniture industry is really relevant. And then, before talking about carbon storage in wood, let's take a quick look at the role of PEFC certification, how PEFC certification maintains and increases carbon storage. Well, actually, Thorsten has already mentioned that. I am going to highlight some points. Maybe I will repeat some parts, but I want to talk about that. Well, the first is a very, how can I say, basic role. In PEFC certified forests, harvesting is strictly regulated, tree coverage is preserved over time, and so all of these enables to maintain forest carbon pools over time. This is a first basic aspect. Let's see here another aspect. PEFC standards promote species variability within forests, and there are various studies that show that species variability is linked with higher carbon storage potential in forests and soils. Or here, as you can read here, managing forests according to PEFC standards can contribute to reduce the frequency of wildfires. And by avoiding wildfires, we are avoiding huge releases of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Also here, this booklet focuses on carbon storage in wood. This is a part. Forest ecosystems also store carbon in other ways, and so PEFC certification maintains and increases the other forest pools. For instance, forest soils are huge carbon pools. And also, PEFC promotes research into the dynamics of forest carbon storage. It is a very up-to-date topic. We still have to understand all the processes, and so PEFC promotes research into this field. So I think now is a good moment for the first poll question. Huang, can you please show the first question? We have two poll questions. There it is. You have 30 seconds to pick your answer. So let's wait 30 seconds. We do not have a background music, but I am not going to sing. Just wait a couple of seconds. There we go. Hong, can you please show the results? this is the question. Can we see the results? There it is. The carbon storage in wood, the amount of carbon storage ends, the role of storage ends when wood is burned. I wanted to have this question, quite simple indeed, but I wanted to have this question to highlight the difference between forests and carbon storage in wood, because in forests we have an active process, a dynamic process. Forests sequester carbon dioxide, they grow, the forest biomass grows over time, and so it is a dynamic situation where carbon can vary over time. Instead, when you have a wood-based product, for instance, a wood chair, you have a static situation. The volume of wood and the carbon in that chair are static, are there, and carbon remains there for the entire service life of the chair. And the carbon storage, as said in the correct answer, the carbon storage ends when the chair is finally burned. So this is to highlight the difference between the dynamic and the static situation. How to calculate the carbon dioxide fixed in wood-based products? We have already seen this formula during last webinar. Let's take a quick look at the formula. How does the calculation work? Well, the formula calculates how much kilograms of oven-dry wood there are in a product. It is important to consider oven-dry wood because wood always contains water. Only in lab conditions we have oven-dry wood, but wood contains water, moisture content, and so we have to remove that water from the calculation because water does not store carbon. So the formula requires to calculate how much oven-dry wood we have, and then to multiply the kilograms of oven-dry wood per the carbon fraction in wood. And as an average, 50% of wood is made of carbon. So 0.5 is the coefficient to calculate how much carbon is included in a certain amount of oven-dry wood. So in this way we have the amount of carbon. Then we have to multiply the amount of carbon per 3.67, this coefficient, because carbon is only a part of the carbon dioxide molecule. I am making the C of carbon. Carbon is only a part of the entire molecule. And so the carbon in wood does not store only its own weight, but fixes the weight of the entire carbon dioxide molecule. So this is the formula, and here on the right you can see the screenshot of the online calculator we developed, but I am going to show you how it works in a few minutes. Here we provided some additional guidance on the calculation method because, well, the formula is quite easy, but additional information is important. For instance, of course, if you're able to measure directly the density, the moisture content, the dimensions of your piece, well, you will be able to obtain a more accurate calculation. Otherwise, you can use reference data, for instance, on density. And in this case, wood reference data are usually average density data in case of wood, and so you are losing a bit of accuracy, but you're able to obtain reliable calculations nonetheless. Or another important point, the calculation method refers to wood-based products only. If in your piece of furniture you have a part that is not made of wood, for instance, you have a glass, well, of course, you have to exclude the volume of that part from the calculation. Or, for instance, in a overlaid panel, a wood-based panel overlaid with a plastic laminate, you have to calculate the volume of the panel and not the thin volume of the plastic laminate, because the plastic laminate is not wood-based. So here we have information to use the formula and the calculator properly. Wang, can you please show the second question? It's another quick question. There it is. How much carbon is approximately contained in 1 kilogram of wood? Again, 30 seconds, quick. A quick moment to answer. Just a few seconds more. Okay, Juan, can you please show the result? Or maybe this time I have to click. Let's see how it works. Okay, here we can see the result. In 1 kilogram of wood, we have 0.5 kilograms of carbon. I wanted to highlight this with this question, that, as said, carbon fraction in wood varies depending on species. 0.5, 50% is commonly used, but of course differences exist between species. And remember that this is the carbon contained in wood, and this carbon fixes a higher amount of carbon dioxide, because carbon is a part of the carbon dioxide molecule. Here we have an example on the left side. This is a real table, and we applied the calculation method to this table. So we identified the different components of this table: tabletop, legs, the aprons on the short side, the aprons on the long side, and we applied the calculation to each component. So for instance, in case of the tabletop, it's made of solid walnut boards, 2 pieces. These are the dimensions of the pieces. This is the volume. We considered the density of solid walnut wood, and we determined the amount of fixed carbon dioxide. And of course, adding all the different amounts, it is possible to calculate the overall amount of fixed carbon dioxide, that in this case is 53.5 kilograms. On the right is an important element. When every other factor is the same, the higher the wood density, the higher the amount of fixed carbon dioxide. It is quite intuitive. In the same volume, if wood is denser, well, in that volume you have, how can I say, you have more wood, you have more material, and so you have more carbon. So the higher the wood density, the higher the amount of fixed carbon dioxide. Again, we are talking about wood, about the static situation of carbon dioxide fixed in wood. Here are 2 pages to address the broader frame of sustainability, because, as said, carbon storage is a part of sustainability. Carbon storage is a part of carbon footprint. Carbon footprint also considers the emissions during transportation or the emission during the production process. And carbon footprint is linked with life cycle assessment, that is linked with circular economy. So all these parts are relevant parts of the broader general concept of sustainability. I also want to highlight that carbon storage in wood-based furniture does not contribute to carbon credits, because often the service life of wood-based furniture does not reach 100 years. And 100 years is the typical time span considered in terms of carbon offsets. But the role of carbon storage in furniture is undeniable nonetheless, for various reasons. The first is that some pieces of furniture can actually last more than 100 years, in particular when furniture is made of solid wood. And in this case, even if we do not have the way to reliably verify this, but in these cases, the storage is longer than 100 years. Also, you can consider, think about all the furniture in the world as a huge horizontal forest made of wood-based products with outcomes and incomes. And this forest is storing carbon right now. And by the way, is growing bigger. And so this is a relevant role. Or if we move to the end of the life cycle, wooden furniture is often, can be easily recycled or reused, and can be recycled, for instance, to produce particle board. And particle board can be used to produce other wood-based furniture. And so this can prolong the overall storage for more than 100 years. Or also, the wood furniture can be stored in landfill, which can prolong the carbon storage, or when wood furniture is burned, when wood is burned, this replaces emissions from fossil fuels. So there are several ways by which wooden furniture, carbon storage of wood furniture is relevant to mitigating climate change. We also included a quick glossary useful to the purpose of the booklet. You know, we are dealing more and more with terms related with greenhouse gases, climate positive, race to net zero, or global warming. All of these topics are so important to our society, and we are dealing more and more with these terms that can be confusing at times. So we provided this quick glossary. And we finished the booklet with a page with something to think about, with some thoughts. And I like to end the presentation of this booklet with this final sentence. This is a poetic license. When you look at a piece of wood, you are looking at the result of a tree kissed by the sun. I like this sentence, and this is an important point. Wood has these environmental and also emotional values. These are strong values of wood-based products. And people are aware of these values, but maybe we, in the production sector, in the research sector, we can make efforts to, increase the awareness of people about these environmental, emotional aspects. Okay, so here we have the references cited during along the booklet, and this is the final cover page. So that's it for the booklet. As said, next week the very final version will be available. You will receive news about that. Now let's show the online calculator. Here is the link to the calculator. And this is on the PEFC Furniture website. This is the page of the calculator. So this is a quick introduction. Here are the instructions how to use the calculator, but of course now I am not going to read the instruction. I am going to show you how to use the calculator. And I will calculate the amount of carbon dioxide stored in this shelf. Hope you see it. This is a small shelf. So how to calculate? The first point is to identify the wood product you have. In this case, it is solid wood. So I am going to select here solid wood. This product, this shelf, only has a piece of wood. Of course, I have chosen a simple example, but in case, as I said for the table before, in case of a piece of furniture with different components, you have to repeat, of course, the calculation for each component. So this is solid wood, but we also included the possibility of choosing the other wood-based products, the wood-based panels most commonly used in furniture: plywood, particle board, OSB, MDF, and HDF. So this is solid wood. Density. Here you can enter the density. If you know the value, just enter the value. For instance, 500 kilograms per cubic meter. If you do not know and as I said, if you're able to directly measure the density of your wood-based component, well, this provides the most accurate calculation. But if not, you can use reference data. You can easily find the reference data in literature, on the web. We added here a list with 45 species, with a density of 45 wooden species, and reference density also for wood-based panels. This list is not, the purpose is not to provide an exhaustive list, of course. This is a quick support. Otherwise, you can search in literature or on website. So click on this list. Well, this is a setting of my browser. Probably you will see the list directly appear directly. I have to click again here and here. And this is the list. As you can see, here are the wood species listed. I can zoom in a little bit. There we are with the density, average density values, and the references at the end. These values are considered wood at 12% of moisture content. The calculator, the online calculator, considers wood with moisture content of 12%, and wood-based panels having 10% of moisture content. So here are the wood species. Here on the right, we indicated the most common density ranges of wood-based panels. If you do not know, you can pick the average value. Also, if you do not know, you can search on manufacturer's datasheet. You can search the density of a panel that is similar to the panel you are considering you have in your piece of furniture. So back to our shelf. In this case, it is mango wood. So I am going to pick the density of mango wood, 760 kilograms. Back to the calculator. Solid wood density is 760 kilograms. Now I am going to enter the dimensions. So the width, I am going to measure the shelf right now. The width is 15 centimeters. Now let's insert the length. Just a moment. The length is 50.5 centimeters, 50.5, and the thickness is, I believe, 2 centimeters. There it is. So now I can click on calculate, and I have the result of the carbon dioxide fixed in this shelf. But before, let me show you this. We included an alternative option. So you can use width, length, and thickness. And of course, this is useful when you have polygonal shapes, polygonal pieces like this shelf. And in this case, you can measure width, length, and thickness. Otherwise, you can enter the volume, because in furniture, it is quite common to have round pieces, circular pieces, curved shapes. So in this case, you can calculate the volume separately, for instance, on an Excel calculation sheet, and then you can include the volume in cubic centimeters. And this is an alternative. So if you are filling the width, length, and thickness, you see that by filling here, the volume cell disappears to avoid confusion. Otherwise, if you fill the volume, the other cells disappear, again, to avoid confusion, because these are two different methods. So back to the shelf, we said 15, 50.5, and 2 centimeters. Calculate. Here we have the result. This shelf is fixing 1.9 almost 2 kilograms of carbon dioxide. This is not so impressive, but consider that this is a small piece. Of course, I have chosen a small piece because I cannot handle a wardrobe or a bed here. I want to show you this about the amount of carbon dioxide fixed. So that's it for the calculator. But let me show you this. We have already seen this during last year's webinar. This is a study I performed in 2019. We considered all the wood-based furniture included in an apartment that we selected as a reasonable case study. Here in light blue, you can see all the wood-based furniture, for instance, parquet flooring, the table, kitchen furniture, the particle board in the kitchen furniture, beds, and so on. And we applied the calculation to each piece of furniture, the bookcase, the shelves, the flooring, and so on. And, long story short, the amount of carbon dioxide fixed, the apartment is fixing 3,500 kilograms of carbon dioxide in less than 80 square meters. To give you the idea, this is approximately the amount of carbon dioxide emitted by 3 cars driving 10,000 kilometers in a year. So it is relevant. And consider that this is just an apartment. Think about the entire building, or think about all the buildings in a city. So, as said at the beginning, the amount of carbon stored, carbon dioxide fixed in wood-based furniture is really impressive. That's it. I want to recall that there is another upcoming webinar, likely next December. This webinar and the last year's webinars, well, they were quite technical. The idea, we are setting it, but the idea for next webinar is to have a broader discussion on sustainability, carbon storage, the role of wood and wood furniture to mitigate climate crisis. So the idea is to have a broader debate and discussion to talk about these very large and important topics. Okay, that's it. The calculator is already available online. Stay tuned. You will receive the news. You will receive news from PEFC about the booklet, and I believe that now we can open the final discussion part. So thanks.
Thank you so much for this very interesting presentation, Francesco, also to Hubert. And I encourage you all to use the Q&A function for this panel discussion that we now have. I'd like to start with a question that I'm really curious about. Hubert, this is for you. How can forest management actually monitor the carbon storage in forests?
Right, this is indeed a very important question. What is forest management is regularly working with is cubic meters, because that's what we do most of the inventories. That means that we have data for the stands, what the management unit has. And these cubic meters represents the growing stock, the standing stock, everything what is dynamically improving on that forest area. We're talking about above the ground carbon sequestration, because as Francesco mentioned, also below the ground, and the ground itself is a very important carbon pool. But coming back to this monitoring aspect, that we require regular monitoring of this inventory. So that means that we are able to, the forest management sector is able to deliver information on these changes in terms of cubic meters, the yield, as you like. And then that cubic meter data can be converted to weight depending on the species, depending on the site. And this weight, as Francesco brilliantly presented, can be then a point of reference for transforming this weight data into sequestered carbon.
Thank you so much. I also have a question for Francesco, because I got puzzled by this. How is it possible that there's more carbon in wood than its own weight?
Yeah, you picked a relevant point, and I say also a typical doubt that emerges, because it's counterintuitive. How can carbon store more weight than its own weight? As I said, carbon is only a part of the entire carbon dioxide molecule. And until the an atom of carbon is included in wood, well, that carbon molecule cannot exist in the atmosphere. So carbon is fixing not only its own weight, but the weight of the entire molecule. During my classes, I usually make this example. It's like having a car that you do not want to run, to drive in the city. So you can store the entire car in a garage, or you can take just a tire and store the tire in the garage. And without the tire, the single tire, the car cannot drive. So you can store the entire car, that is the carbon dioxide molecule, or you can store only a tire, that is the carbon atom, and storing just this part prevents the car from driving around. Hope that now this example is not fully correct, but I think it gives the idea, and I hope it is clearer now, because it is a typical doubt. Yeah.
Yes, it is certainly much clearer now. Thank you for this very illustrative explanation of it. Let's stay with you for the first question, which is, how can we talk about the carbon storage if we do not consider the emission balances also provided or that incur during transportation, production, and so on?
Yes, and again, another relevant point. That's correct. As said, carbon storage is a very important part of carbon footprint, but it is a part of carbon footprint. And the carbon footprint considers all the other emissions. And the carbon footprint is a part of life cycle assessment. So it is correct that we have to consider the life cycle assessment, that is the broader view on the environmental impacts of a product. But we can also talk about and consider each part that are included in the life cycle assessment. For instance, if I talk about carbon footprint, I am considering the entire carbon footprint, but I am not considering other environmental impacts that are considered in a life cycle analysis. Or maybe I am talking about carbon footprint and I am not considering social aspects. So of course, all of these many aspects have to be considered together, of course. Nonetheless, we can talk about social aspects without talking carbon footprint, or carbon footprint without necessarily strictly talking together of social aspects. So the idea is to focus on a relevant part, carbon storage, but keeping in mind that there are many other parts that fill the overall frame.
Thank you so much. There are a couple of questions that go directly into the calculator itself. How is the volume actually being calculated? Can I use a calculator only for furniture or for any kind of wood product? And I think there are also a couple of questions that relate to, say, density, how that differs. So it would be nice if you could look into some of those questions and provide answers.
So I have to open.
I can read them to you if you like me to.
I can read here. So, for instance, how can wood fix more carbon? We already addressed that. Moisture content. Here I see a question about moisture content. As said in the calculation, moisture content has to be removed from the calculation because moisture content is water and carbon is not included in moisture content. So in the online calculator, if you want, you can use the formula by yourself, selecting the value of moisture content you have, the density you have. And so the booklet gives you the possibility of making an accurate calculation. The online calculator necessarily has some preset values. And so we choose to have 12% of moisture content of wood, because this is the typical value of moisture content considered when talking about wood density and wood properties, and 10% of wood-based moisture content in wood-based panels, because well, it can vary, but in production sector, wood-based panels can be around 10%, and so the calculator automatically removes the value of moisture content from the result. So it is already considered automatically. And so you just have to enter the density of your piece, consider a density at 12% of moisture content. This is, for instance, about moisture content. About the volume, do you see a question regarding the volume?
How do you calculate the volume of wood used in furniture?
How you calculate? Several ways. As I made before, you can directly measure your piece. It is quite easy in some cases. This was a very simple case, and this is quite easy. In other cases, you may find it in technical data sheet of the product, of the components. So maybe in some cases it is already calculated. In other cases, you have to apply different formulas. For instance, if you have a circular or cylindrical piece, you have to calculate the area of the circular shape and then multiply by the thickness. So it depends on the shape. In some cases, you can approximate. So if you have a curved line, you can divide these in linear lines and use this approximation to calculate. So of course, it depends on the geometrical shape of the piece you have, and you can calculate the volume of your piece of furniture or of the component, and then you can add to have the volume of the overall piece of furniture.
Thank you. So can I use a calculator only for furniture, or does it also work for other wood-based products?
So we, of course, addressed it to wood-based furniture, but actually it works for every wood-based product that has the wood components we listed: solid wood, plywood, OSB, and so on. For instance, if you want to calculate, let's say, the carbon storage of a pole in a vineyard, often poles in vineyard are made of solid wood. Well, in that case, it is not furniture, it's a pole in a vineyard, but you can select solid wood. Then this pole maybe is with chestnut wood, a durable wood, so you can insert the density of sweet chestnut and go on with the dimensions to calculate the carbon dioxide fixation. So yes, it is addressed to wood-based furniture, but really you can apply that also to other products.
What about glue? We have a question. Do you give some guidance for wood-based panels containing glue to know the amount of wood inside, because the amount of glue can vary?
This is a good pick and a technical part. I did not mention that. It is mentioned in the calculator web page. The point is that in solid wood, all the volume is wood, so 100% is wood. In wood-based panels, in the volume of a panel, you do not have only wood. You also have the glue, or maybe in particle boards, or in some cases you can have some, in OSB, you can have small voids between the different strands. So, in that cases, not all the volume is wood, and you have to consider that a fraction of the volume is not wood. This is automatically done by the calculator, and this is why you have to select the product at the beginning. There is an IPCC document, very useful and important, that lists the content of carbon based on the different wood-based panels. And so the calculator uses the content of carbon and wood, for instance of plywood, to make the calculation. For instance, in plywood, I don't recall exactly, but it is around 98% of the volume is wood, the remaining part is not wood. So the fact that in wood-based panel, the volume is not only wood, is already automatically considered by the calculator according to the values given by IPCC. Hope that this is clear.
Yes. Now I've got a difficult question, I think, and I'm not sure whether Hubert or Francesco, who of you can answer that. Do you think a forest operator that does a first transformation could use a tool to measure all of its production carbon storage and communicate the results and potentially apply for carbon credits?
We are talking at the single industry, single company level?
Yes, I think so.
What I can tell is probably the transformation is being the primary processing of that particular unit. So I'm sure that those companies who are able to account the incoming amount of timber and what is going out of this after the processing, they do have the possibility to measure on what is their processing is delivering to them as a result, which then can be measured in terms of quantification of carbon sequestrations. Whether or not applying for carbon credits, though, that's something which is it's not a general international framework as far as applicability is concerned, that you have various countries, various carbon credit schemes and so on, what they take on board. They have a number of different and very wide application possibilities. So I think with the carbon credits, I'm not sure, but those data required for potentially applying for carbon credits should be available at the operator level.
I agree with Hubert's answer, also because, well, carbon credits is a complex framework, but as said, usually you have to guarantee that carbon storage lasts at least 100 years, and this in carbon furniture cannot be strongly verified. This is a relevant point.
I have another question for you, Hubert. Is there a difference between the carbon stored in a PEFC certified forest and a non-PEFC certified forest?
Well, in terms of carbon molecule, no, it's the same carbon dioxide which is being stored in both of these forests. I think the only differences, which is rather significant, is what I mentioned on my presentation, is the third-party verification, that in the PEFC certified forest, the management plan should take into consideration these safeguarding elements, which is reflecting carbon storage. So the certification added value in these very concrete cases, that there are independent experts who look into whether or not it was considered or not. I think it's absolutely possible that non-certified forests deliver these practices, but the question of how is being then provided with evidence that those practices are happening in an internationally comparable framework, that remains a subject maybe for a different discussion.
Thank you.
Raising my hand.
Oh, yes.
I want to add this. Also, let's consider a paradoxical situation. Also, illegal wood stores carbon, because wood is made of carbon around 50%. So also illegal wood obtained from deforestation stores carbon. But of course, we cannot take advantage, we cannot value this carbon storage in illegal wood. This is the key role of PEFC sustainable certification. Being at the beginning, having a sustainable management, we can take advantage of all the benefits of wood that are typical of wood, including carbon storage. This is an important point I wanted to highlight this.
Thank you. And I have a related question here, which comes about, first, what can you explain the term cascading use again and what that actually means? Perhaps in the context of also looking at the lifespan of wood furniture and how that relates to carbon storage. Does it depreciate over time? Can you perhaps have a few words about that?
It's up to me, Hubert, as you prefer. I can. The cascading use of wood is a relevant concept, in particular strictly linked with circular economy. So the key idea of a cascading wood is to delay as much as possible is to prolong as much as possible the use of wood in various forms, and to delay as much as possible the final burning of wood, so the moment when carbon dioxide gets back to the atmosphere. Because I can take a piece of wood, for instance, in firewood, I can cut the firewood, I can season it for 2 years, and after 2 years, the carbon dioxide gets back to the atmosphere. This is a very short storage. In wood-based products, the storage is typically longer. For instance, a parquet flooring can last in an apartment 60 years, maybe more. And this is a first part of the cascade. Then, when this parquet flooring is dismissed, I can burn it, and so carbon dioxide gets back to the atmosphere. Or I can use it to make, for instance, particle board with the very same wood. And that particle board can end in a kitchen furniture that lasts other 20 years. And so we have prolonged the storage for other 20 years. So the idea of cascading use is to prolong as much as possible the storage, because this helps us to reduce the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And there was another question associated that I don't recall.
Well, does the carbon storage actually depreciate in a wood product over time?
Thanks for the reminder. In wood, no. As said, it is a static situation. So if I have a table made of wood, this table is made of X kilograms of wood, and so it contains X kilograms of carbon, and this does not depreciate over time unless the table decomposes, because maybe it is in outdoor environment and so it starts to be attacked by fungi. But you know, basically a piece of wood contains a certain amount of carbon, and that amount of carbon stays stored for the entire service life until we have the final decomposition or burning.
Thank you. Let's have the same question about the forest, the trees itself, Hubert. Does the carbon storage potential or the sequestration, does it change over time? And what's actually, where is carbon stored? Is it like in the roots? Is it like in the, so where do I find the most carbon?
Right. Well, of course, like everything, they have the forest stands also have different potential to store carbon in the young age, in the middle age, let's say, and in the overgrowth age. And there are very detailed studies on how these dynamics are working. I think it's due to the lack of time. I think it would be not fair to get into a very long discussion on this, but generally, it's very important to say that when we manage something, we are trying to make sure that the practices what is out there is improving or yield. It means that trees are able to grow faster. They are able to have larger dimensions in every sense. And that means that they are all facilitating to carbon sequestration in this end. Whether it's the trees are having more carbon above or below the ground, clearly the above part, which is more relevant in every possible sense, because that's what's more accessible. However, we need to have a mention about the species characteristics, because the oak types typically, as we say, that they have a carrot type root system, which they have very long, straight roots, very thick as well. So generally, that 1/3 of the height at least is going also available below the ground. However, it's a bit more concern of the mining profession, not really for forest utilization as such. So all in all, the managed forest, they have the intention by default and by decades and centuries of experience to try to facilitate this carbon sequestration storage through having the conditions allowing bigger dimension trees to grow on that particular site, given, of course, the limitations often faced by the site conditions as such.
Thank you. So, but from what I understand, it means that I have the carbon stored in the furniture and the carbon stored in the trees. So if I use a tree to produce furniture and in a sustainably managed forest, replant the tree, then I actually have double storage of the carbon. Is that correct?
I wouldn't necessarily make that very simple equation. Let's say it's double. However, when you cut a tree, you take only one part of this out from the stand, because the smaller branches, the leaves and everything remains back there, providing a very important pool for decomposing organizations, improving the soil, improving habitat for certain species which demand this dead wood component, which is being removed then. So that means that when you fell a tree, that some part is being taken out, some part is left there. And then in this way, depending on the elements of the tree, is able to be used for certain processing activities, can have different life cycle. I really like the example of what Francesco provided, that, for example, non-industrial timber they still able to have a shorter life cycle compared to gas and oil, in a way that even though they go back to the atmosphere, but then the purpose of the management is to capture those back through the forest stand, so making the cycle much smaller. But of course, if you have a higher end product, like it's unfortunately I'm not able to lift it, but the desk what I'm having the call now, it's a 50 years old desk from my grandfather, which was produced, for example, from 100-year-old oak, so already having the life cycle more than a century of this stored carbon. So I think it's a lot depends on how these resources, whatever we take out of the forest, with what is the level of respect and the care what we give them to make their life cycle as long as possible.
Thank you so much. The webinar ends soon, so those questions that we haven't been able to answer will follow up by email. I'd like to ask both Francesco and Hubert for one takeaway message that you'd like participants to remember, or a call for action.
I can go first because mine is maybe shorter. I think it's clear that the added value of the third-party verification of certified forest management is assuring a number of safeguarding elements which can feed into the supply chains, particularly to sustainable supply chains. And every forest is different, but all of the world where you have PEFC certified forests, they respond to the same set of requirements. Thank you.
Okay, as for me, well, it's hard to pick only one, but I will say that carbon storage in wood is a key aspect of wood-based products, and carbon storage is so important to our society that it is, as said, a part of carbon footprint, but it is a very relevant part. And this is a huge value of wood, and so it's nice to see that by dealing with wood, by producing wood-based products, we can contribute to mitigating climate crisis. We can actively participate in doing something that can be useful to mitigate climate crisis. That is a key challenge for our society.
Thank you so much. Let me follow up directly on this. Everyone in the furniture industry, if you're dealing with wooden furniture, you are an important part of the solution to combat climate change. If you're not yet PEFC certified, become PEFC certified so that you can take full advantage and fully contribute to the opportunities that are out there. Climate change is probably the most serious problem humanity has ever faced. At the same point in time, it is also a business opportunity. You can do well by doing good. So I encourage you all to consider how we can use PEFC certification and the potential to calculate the carbon storage in your products, to raise awareness of this issue and to demonstrate that you have a solution at hand. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you again for the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.